Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. This is day 197 of full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine. My name is Andriy Shevchenko. On behalf of Mediacentru, I welcome all journalists who share the truth about our fight for freedom. On the 6th of September, the Parliament of Ukraine, Verkhovna Rada, adopted a law on introduction of a single emergency phone line 112. We would like to know what sort of changes that makes for law enforcement system and other systems in war conditions. But we believe that this will be emergency phone line that will receive a lot of calls related to war situations. So our guest today is Igor Bondarenko, Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. Why do we need this single emergency phone service? Welcome. Why we needed to introduce this system urgently and why we did it together with Verkhovna Rada. This is not a new law. Um, first, for the first time, it was adopted back in 2012, but now we need to fully implement this service. What is 112? So this is emergency phone service with our citizens, with the people of Ukraine, and with people who need help, urgent help. Those could be even foreigners who are currently residing in Ukraine or visiting Ukraine. So the changes that were made and introduced and supported, voted by Verkhovna Rada and the President of Ukraine, so they are all about us having a possibility to have a very clear legislative regulation. So this is how the emergency calls will be commutated and why it became pressing issue now, because there were quite a few incidents in our northern borders. So that was Chernihiv region, which was besieged for a long time, and they were very close to the Russian troops. And because of active hostilities, the land telecommunication system was badly damaged, and that was the system that was dispatching the calls to 102, 103 services. Therefore, these classic, let's call them like that, services 102, 103 were not in operation. And our police officers, our emergency service, our ambulance service, so they had to improvise, and they put the efforts together and they distributed information all over the city, just like flyers, and they would put cell phone numbers so that people could call these cell phone numbers and get help. What's going to change for people who, for example, need to call 112 emergency phone service? Technically speaking, we are going to be independent of infrastructure of the ground communications, regional communications, because these ground communications are pretty outdated. So that was heritage from the Soviet Union. But technically speaking, the people, in case of emergency, in case of incident, where they have to, for example, involve a few services, for example, emergency service of Ukraine, doctors, so they don't need to call several services, for example, 102, 104, 102. So they just report the information to the dispatcher, 112, and the dispatcher sees the location, so they create the incident, they fill in the information according to the protocol, they involve the services that have to be involved and that are providing the services locally. So all this information is processed very fast according to very clear algorithm, and the response will be effective and quick. We make these changes in order to harmonize our legislation and our practice and approximate it to European law norms and standards. How this algorithm differ from the algorithm of EU countries? Thank you for the question. You're absolutely right that this is yet another argument why we had to do it. So this is our commitment that we have taken when signing association agreement with the EU. Some countries that have already implemented the modernization measures, some are still on the way. So we all have to approximate this with the EU standards. So this is all European model. You know that in the United States they have 911 service, but basically it's the same type of service, it's the same logic. So that means that we are moving towards a civilized world. We are trying to unify this system. And especially given the circumstances, the full-scale military aggression, so we had to do it, and we had to expedite this process. And moreover, we have commitments which we also have to meet. So by the end of the year, we will have all technical capacities in Kyiv and Kyiv region to involve 112 emergency phone service. There will be transition period, and during this transition period 102, 104, 103 will still be effective, so that will be dispatched, these calls will be dispatched to corresponding services, and all citizens will be provided assistance. When do you think we will switch to 112 completely and drop the other service lines? Optimistically speaking, best case scenario, we will be adding new regions. So by the end of this year, it will be pilot region, Kyiv and Kyiv region. Next year, given the capabilities, we will be adding new regions. It's not only about changing the routing of the calls, but it's also readiness in the field, readiness in certain regions. We are also doing the inventory in regions. We also need to know whether we need to expand their capacity, to strengthen their capabilities so that they meet and correspond the methodology and techniques of responding, the time of responding, the time of arriving at the crime scene or incident scene. So this is the whole complex of measures that have to be met. Another major issue is this inventory that I had already mentioned. So we need to define those measures that need to be modernized locally together with local self-government. So this is the complex challenge that we have to meet, but we are ready. What are the other pressing news and hot news that are within the responsibility of Ministry of Internal Affairs? Ministry of Interior is in charge of safety and security. So this is one of our major priorities, to create safe environment where people can feel comfortable, protected, and safe. What is safety? This is the feeling. So the person either feels safe or unsafe. But now, given the war, the full-scale invasion, and military hostilities, all our departments, all our units are working 24/7. We can say that some work more, some less. So we all have assignments, we all have commitments, we all do our best. There are sub-projects. For example, 112 is one of the tools to create safe environment. Or, for example, weapon registry and tracking the weapons, monitoring the use and possession of firearms. We are also working with the Ministry for Regional Policy. We are trying to scale the project which is called Safe Country. We are trying to create typology, methodology, DAO index, requirement standardization. We are trying to communicate it to our communities. We are planning joint events this year, next year. Therefore, this is just an overview of our systemic work. Partially, we started some of the projects in peacetime. I understand that peacetime is a relative issue because the war started in 2014. The full-scale invasion started in 2022. So we were trying to do all these things according to our plan. But unfortunately, given new circumstances, we have to change the priorities. So we have to respond to the issues that are of the most pressing issues. So that was in a nutshell about our major projects. But when we are talking about things that we need to do all the time, so I won't have enough time. So our guest was Igor Bondarenko, Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. Our next briefing is going to be about the Days of European Heritage in Lviv. Please